class. Welcome to the offices of Empower. We are located, actually headquartered here in Cincinnati, Ohio. We also have an office in Chicago, Illinois. And we are a creative media hybrid agency. So we work in the realm of advertising, basically helping our clients connect with people in a way that makes them more money. That's really what it is that we bring to the value equation in working with the clients. So my name is Ryan Darrow. I'm the Senior Vice President of Media Innovation here at Empower.
My name is Dan Mayer. I'm the Vice President of Intelligence here at Empower.
So hello. We're going to walk you through a few different things during the course of this presentation, a lot of which are going to be kind of encapsulated in this idea of this changing marketing landscape that we've really been a part of for the entire time that Dan and I have been here at Empower. And then we're going to round it out with a very specific example from one of our clients via a case study that I think will make things a little bit more tangible for you guys to just digest. So let's first start with the idea of a changing marketing landscape. Certainly there has never been a greater pace of change than there is today, and yet, as a lot of industry folks will tell us, and we would echo in firsthand experience, there will only be more and more and more and more change at a greater rate tomorrow and beyond. So this is just part of what we deal with on a daily basis here at Empower and for our clients. A lot of that change can really all be encapsulated in the idea of digitization. Digitization. Obviously, digital media is a huge part of our daily lives, but digitization actually is a game changer in the world of marketing and marketing success. The best way, one of the best ways to unpack the changes for digitization is to look at media consumption demographically. So we will look actually at some of the time spent scenarios that we see it as it breaks out across the different demographics of some of the different age ranges that we typically try to market to for our clients. So the older demographic here, which is this bar, you can see that this high blue portion represents the amount of time that they spend with live TV. Good old-fashioned, sit down on my recliner in the living room, kick my heels back, and watch appointment-driven television at the time that that cable company or that network wanted to put it on the television. The purple box here is radio, so that's actually active time listening to radio. Then the small green box for this adult 65 plus audience is TV connected devices. So these are your Rokus, your Amazon Fires, your connected video consoles that you watch connected TV through. Internet on a computer is the yellow box. The orange box is app or web time spent, so these people spending time on their smartphone, and then app or web on a tablet device. So all of these in this kind of vertical column add up to a total amount of time spent with media for that very specific demographic. So then you can see along the bottom the different cuts of total adults 18 plus all the way to the left. Adults 18 to 34 is a subset of that. 35 to 49, 50 to 64, and then 65 plus. So that's the way to kind of approach how to read this media time spent graphic based on different cuts of demography across the population. So one thing to note among adults 18 to 34 is just looking at the orange bar versus the blue bar, the orange being smartphone and the blue being television, there's already more time spent with a smartphone than there is on TV. The good old-fashioned way of consuming media and consuming advertising and marketing. So versus where we're at with adult 65 plus, you can see the huge shift that's taking place over the generations of media consumption. Specifically looking at TV connected devices, this is actually data that's about a year old at this point, and about 14% of all time spent among that adult 18 to 34 audience was actually spent on TV connected devices, which is growing up toward the popularity range of where traditional television is. And then even as we click one generation further into adults 35 to 49, we still see that they spend on average 31 hours and 41 minutes with digital media versus only 28 hours and 24 minutes with TV. So even though there tends to be a perception that digitized media, including TV connected devices that are digital, is more of a younger person's game, it's actually every person's game, and increasingly so as you get younger and younger. Now, one thing that is incredibly true in an area of digitization is that all of this changed consumer behavior creates a lot of fragmentation in the space. It also creates a lot of opportunity for people like you and I to skip through or to avoid the things that our clients really want to tell you because they want to sell you more products or services. There have never been more ways to avoid advertising, which is a real problem for marketers. Whether it's things like skipping past ad pods or fast forwarding through commercials with DVRs. Maybe it's things like ad blockers where you can download straight to your mobile device or straight to your browser on your desktop, where you can avoid all of the advertising that might come at you from a marketer. Skinny bundles that cut out a lot of the noise from the other thicker bundles with the old cable companies. Subscription services where you can actually support and opt into an ad-free model entirely. And the good old-fashioned second screening, which is just the very human nature of us changing our attention from the thing that we're looking at, one screen, and down to the smartphone when a commercial comes up, or when something that we don't care for comes up on the other screen, and then switching back and forth. There have never been more ways to avoid marketers' messages, and that's a real problem for marketers. In fact, this is a fun fact, we, on average, as adults in the United States, switch our attention between screens, TV to smartphone to tablet, on average 22 times per hour, and we touch those dirty little phones on average 2,000 times per day. So that is a whole lot of interaction that a marketer needs to try to break through to try to grab a consumer's attention, which is really what we need to do our jobs well. When we think about it that way, it actually resets a lot of our clients' expectations and reframes their brains on who their competition is. A lot of our clients think of their competition as other people who sell goods or services, much like the ones that they sell or provide. In reality, the competition in a world where we can change our attention so frequently and we can avoid marketing messages entirely, the competition is everybody, including these billion-dollar advertisers in the United States, that want the same two eyeballs that our clients do, regardless of what they're selling from a service or goods perspective, which is a really big problem if you're not one of these billion-dollar advertisers. And honestly, it's a problem even for the billion-dollar advertisers. One of the other truths about the marketing landscape today is that a lot of these advertisers are really just running out of ideas. So they're pumping more and more money into the things that used to work, i.e. traditional media channels, which is really best illustrated by this rise in costs. Because one of the things that's true, as you'll probably learn in some economics classes, is supply and demand tend to meet with price. So supply has been pretty constant. In fact, it's actually declining when it comes to people watching TV. There's less eyeballs watching TV than there used to be. And yet demand is steady or even rising. So what happens when supply is constant or constrained and demand is steady or rising is that price goes up. And this is basically just a graphic from 2012 all the way up through the end of 2017 that shows the increased costs of buying commercial airtime in television media from a broadcast and a cable perspective over that time frame. So from 2012 all the way to 2017, there was a 40+% rise in the cost of getting commercials in front of people. And our clients, and many like them, will be the first to tell you that their marketing budgets have not grown 40 to 45% in that same time frame. So again, it's a real problem for marketers to try to rely on what they used to rely on in order to reach people in so many different ways, with so many ways to avoid that. One of the other truths about digitization, it's a little bit separate from those, but it's still a truth of digitization, is that artificial intelligence will increasingly determine what we see. So our experience with a channel, a network, a program will be different than somebody else's experience that might look or act exactly like us. And that's because AI, which is just a series of formulas and algorithms working behind the scenes, is looking at everything that we do, and it's looking at the things that we engage with and interact with, and it's serving us up more things that we engage with and interact with, and the things that we don't engage or interact with, the things that we don't pay attention to, it's serving us less and less of those. which is why each one of our worlds are kind of uniquely shaped based on the different apps or experiences we have in the media environments that Dan and I operate in. In fact, AI will deliver all digitized content in the future. And we think it's an easy example, a very palatable idea that you guys can grasp today, just thinking through how you interact with these kinds of platforms. So whether you're on Pinterest, Facebook, Google, or YouTube, there is AI working in the background that helps understand exactly what you care about based on all of your previous experiences within those platforms. So when you go search something on Google or when you look for a video on YouTube, the things that will render to you will be based on your history on that platform, and you can try it with your friends just to see how different those results are for some of the different things that you might search in the daily life of a consumer. So AI increasingly determines what we see based on engagement and interaction, not necessarily based on what the marketer wants to say, but based on what people do when the marketer says it, whether they lean in or whether they lean out. So that's a little doom and gloom, but there is good news about digitization, because digitization actually creates a huge data opportunity. And the data opportunity is where we can start to turn this horror story into a success story for marketing clients.
Yeah, so as Ryan was saying, the rate of change has never been greater, but the amount of data that we have on our consumers has also never been greater. And it's also going to grow exponentially. This is just a visual of some of the different ways that we capture data on our consumers today. It has traditionally been very digital in nature, digital media. It is increasingly applying though to traditional media that has become digitized. So even your traditional TV viewing, we're now getting data streams that we can use in near real time to help inform the best approach to reach our consumers. And this is only going to increase, as I mentioned, as more and more smart devices come online. So whether it's your refrigerator, your watch, your washing machine, all of these things are going to be capturing signals about consumer behavior. And it really is a treasure trove of information that we as marketers can leverage to understand what their needs are and how they prefer to go about satisfying those needs. There's also some marketing tech that we have to deploy, though, to take full advantage of all these data signals. The data management platform is really our hub. It is a piece of technology that we've deployed. It's where we can get all of this data into a singular system, and it's also where we push that data out from an activation perspective. So all of the insights about consumers, we then leverage to deliver the most appropriate message at the most appropriate time in the most appropriate context. And that's really what we're trying to help our clients do, is create what we call a proprietary data advantage. And there are really three components to that. You might hear them referred to as either third-party data, second-party data, first-party data. We also refer to them as syndicated, private, or shared data sets. And really, the idea is that you can't win with just focusing on one of these three. We have to look across all different types of data elements and put together the right combination of them to offer both the scale and the precision that we need to get the most out of our media dollars. So this is an example for our famous footwear client of how we help them to maximize their first-party data. So first-party data is data that that client owns just through the course of doing their day-to-day business. So when people make a purchase and they provide their email address to join a rewards program, they're captured in a CRM database. People go to their website to browse or to buy. We're capturing that cookie and we're ingesting that into the DMP. Similar with their app, so people that download the app and use it, we're capturing that information through a software development kit or an SDK. And then finally, just serving digitized ads. Typically, on the web, we can also place a DMP pixel to capture back information about who was exposed to that ad and what sort of action they may have taken as a result. So we're capturing all this information. Again, this is flowing both in and out of the DMP as we make media decisions. But we want to also activate that information. So from a CRM perspective, we'll take that information and we will build different segments or different audiences out of that information depending on what we know about those customers. A lot of times it's limited to a transactional nature, so we know, what type of shoe they bought, we know how often they buy, we know how much they spend on average. So we can build out different segments based on how valuable those customers are to Famous Footwear. And then we have to onboard them into technology called LiveRamp. There are other providers in the space, but essentially what LiveRamp is doing is it's taking that first-party primary data and it is anonymizing it so that we can use it for marketing purposes. So we have to be very careful about privacy in this day and age. And so LiveRamp is that technology partner that enables us to do the things that we need to do to be relevant without being creepy, I guess as some people might refer to it. So we get an anonymized view. We also are able to match those segments to all of their devices, which then we can find them out on the open web or in-app and serve them the appropriate message. Load.me is our data management platform. So that's a specific company that we're partnering with to enable all of this. And once we have those segments defined, anonymized, and matched, we get them into our DMP, again, that central hub, where we then push that information out to all of the media touchpoints. And that's not just online display. We can send this data to online video. We can send it into social media. Native advertising is big these days. We can send it into those platforms. And then increasingly, as I mentioned, it's not just digital media. It's traditional media that has become digitized. So if you think about streaming radio and things like audience TV that are using a lot more data signals to help us pick out the genres or the programs that are most relevant to those audiences. And the reason that we're doing all this is really to enable these 5 components. The first component is target audience. So I'll talk a little bit about that already, but really honing in on the people that we know are of the highest value to our clients and making sure that we're speaking to them and that we're speaking to them to the next point as recently as we can. So people that fit a particular target or a particular persona or need state aren't static in that state. So as you think about buying a pair of shoes, it doesn't do us any good to target somebody the day after they already bought a pair of shoes. So we want to make sure that our recency lines up with the targeting so that we're timely in delivering those messages. The next component is frequency. How many times have you been annoyed by a brand who has just served you the same message 15 times in one sort of web browsing session? We want to make sure that doesn't happen with our clients and their consumers, so we're controlling for that across the open web. And then the message component is number 4 there, really helping understand what we should say to those people when we find them. And this can be anything from just making sure that we serve them up the right shoe that they're interested in or the right brand, or it can be something that we call message sequencing, where we want to tell that consumer a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. We can use the technology here to serve them the first message the first time we find them, and then the second time we find them, we'll tell them the middle, and the third time we find them, we'll tell them the end of that story, and typically include a stronger call to action to get them to do that thing that we ultimately want, typically visit the website or make a purchase. And then finally, the last piece there is integration. So we want to make sure this is a seamless experience for our brand's consumers. And so being able to control for all of these different components across all the places that we're finding them across the open.